Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope we're all having a fun and fine uh, Sunday afternoon. Okay, so kind of not really inspired by any real research questions today. And actually, I was talking about the package I was working on yesterday with Joe after the stream, and we're just talking about things. And I think there's a few questions. He brought up some really good ideas that I want to look at. So may as well take the time to do it today, and kind of do it as part of the work on this package. That seems to be my new obsession. It's kind of a new fun thing. So that's where I'm gonna do it. I called your package garbage. No, I said your. I don't know if I take credit for that. I said that I thought your package was. What did I say? I didn't understand your package because I think you were doing weird for loops in it. That's what I said about your package. I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. So welcome back, Tony. Um, so I kind of have a bit of a framework about how I want to do simulations, but Joe brought up some good questions about how some of the assumptions I'm making as part of this package. So I figured I wanted to kind of investigate what like, kind of think through those things and kind of do a bit of research. So kind of still doing some plotting and um, kind of my data science-y bits of the stream rather than doing a pure programming one. Into fantasy season schedules. I'm bothered by this caps lock thing. So I'm just rewriting this for now. Win, loss, H2H, plus all play, plus total season points for, potential points, etc. Figure out plugs and viz. Yeah, so yeah, I remember you asking in Slack about it when we first started it, but I don't really remember. I wasn't really able to like grok what was going on in the code, so I figured either I'd rope you in or make you an author, I'd intrigue your interest enough here that you'd help me with this package, to help model and do other fun stuff. So hopefully I can steal either your code or your time or both, and get you involved here. But basically, right now, what I've already started is kind of a package. Actually, I don't want it to run like that. I want it to run. Stop! 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 Okay. I'm just gonna run this line by line, but basically, I have like scoring history already. So, what I think, this music's kind of loud, isn't it? I'm gonna turn that music down a bit. Down. Okay, so kind of my initial thing is I've got scoring history, right? And this calculates scoring for your specific league, going back to 2006, which is just 15 years. And basically, kind of the framework I've started with is, okay, so for every player who's like, calculate the rank of the season ending rank of all the years by calculating for all the players who have played more than 4 games, so that's 5 or more, and basically that gives you a season rank for that player, right? So you've got like, this player had kind of flip to 2020. Tom Brady finished as quarterback 11 based on his 24 PPG. Alex Smith was quarterback 43, etc. And then basically what I'm doing is joining it back onto the scoring history to get the range of points, like range of weekly scores. This might take a second to render here. while our studio figures it out. So basically, the season-ending quarterback one has a set of weekly scores that looks like this. So it could be like they've scored, sometimes they score 32, 30, 40, 26, 6.82, so like a really bad week, etc. So you kind of have like a population of all of the potential weekly scores for the quarterback one, and from there can understand. Okay, so if I draw from this, if I know from Fantasy Pros that they're the number one rated quarterback here, and this is the assumption that Joe's challenging, so I want to look at this today. But basically, if they're the number one rated quarterback, and we assume that they're going to finish as the number one rated quarterback, here's the population of all the scores that they could score, like all of the weeks and the weekly points they could score. So can I draw from that sample 1,000 times, fit it to, and call that like 1,000 weeks of scoring, and fit it over, I don't know, 10 seasons, 100 seasons, and then use that 100 seasons to kind of then like use your schedule package and like do people as head to head and calculate optimal starting lineups, and then really use that as the basis of the simulation, right? And basically the idea would be to use, like, here's all of the potential scoring, assuming that they finish number one overall, or number one quarterback, number one running back, number one receiver, etc., or number 12, and then just use that population, sample from it however many times, like 1,000 or 100 or something. It actually doesn't take very long to sample, so if you've tied in this Fantasy Pros ranking and the rosters, you can get a 17 game season for that roster, and so basically just line it up. Empirical scores given empirical bench points. I don't think I understood the question. So what I'm trying to get at, I guess, rosters, range, franchise ID, rank, pause, rank. So what I'm hoping to do is say, okay, so if this is a 17-week season, Justin Herbert could score, make things easy to assume, some distribution of team scores. Same could be done for a player level. I could do that. I'm actually just lumping a sum. So let's say like Justin Herbert here. So this is like 225 like potential outcomes for Justin Herbert. So basically this is every player who's finished at quarterback 8, like in season ending rank. Here's all of their weeks that contributed to their finish. So sometimes they've scored 21.4, 13.9, 8.8, etc. So you're kind of drawing from this sample, and you can draw from this as many times as you want. So you notice that there's like weeks where they did like very poorly, and then there's weeks where they did very well, like 46s, 39s, etc. So my initial thought about simulating had been just draw from this like with replacement 1,000 times as the potential outcome, or however many times, like 17 times if you're doing one season, 1,700 times if you're doing 100 seasons, etc. And basically just kind of use that as the approach to simulating. So Joe's position for chat, yeah. So this is kind of where I wanted to look into. We only know what their preseason ADP is, and not what their full season finish will be. So, can we assume that Justin Herbert will finish number 8 instead of number 12? And if not, is there a better way to understand, like, if we think preseason they're going to be this, what will they be postseason? And if we use a distribution or something to do that, we can draw from a larger sample, like we can draw from this sample this many times, this sample this many times, and that sample that many times, perhaps, I think could be an interesting way to look at it. Like if there's an implied distribution of that, we can use that distribution to sample from all points a certain number of times as well. I think that's sort of how I wanted to approach Joe's problem. And then there's the other problem, which is injuries. So, um, you know, like, I don't know if there. I think there is value in simulating injuries if we can. I just don't know a good way to do that yet. So, they're kind of those are the two main questions I would like that I kind of like want to figure out from like a research perspective. Is there a good way to simulate injuries and to like connect ADP to the final rank? In support of Joe's hypothesis, he did link me this Numberphire article, which we can read together, but basically, create this population of scores for the QB8 by preseason ADP. Yeah, we can do that too. I only have 5 years of preseason ADP, but we can bulk that up in other ways and see how well that works. So, how did I get around this earlier? Oh yeah, reader mode. So first of all, there's games missed, which these guys looked at over 3 years as an average. I feel like it could be interesting to simulate a number of games missed by doing some kind of like logarithmic curve of like just random, like they should miss like one or two, like significantly should miss 1 or 2 games as opposed to like a bell curve around 3 games each. I'm not sure. There's something interesting to think about in terms of injuries here. We got some other crap here. Volatility. Okay, yeah, so decently interesting. I think we can look at the ADP. So I do have some history of ADP somewhere that we can look at. What's even in here? I feel like this is weekly ranks, so maybe I'll need to reconstruct it. Let's do Fantasy Pros. Let's get the range of that. So we've got data from when I set the first scraping job in 2019 up to 2 days ago, which is sort of helpful. But probably more helpful would be the archive data that I was pulling. So I'm going to open DB and I'm going to close the Scott Fishbowl thing because I don't think I'm going to look at that today. This is from when I was doing mismatches. If you're using ffscraper, there's the DP clean names now has a bit of a name database that helps helps you do name joins if you're into that kind of thing. So like Pat to Patrick Mahomes, Mitch to Mitchell Trubisky, etc. And that's a relatively new feature. So if you're keen on trying that, give it a spin. It's in the dev version. I did just do that like 2 or 3 nights ago. So feel free to try that out. Okay, so thank you for the follow, RC Tatman. That's I've seen that name before. It's Rachel, I think. Welcome to the stream. I stream a lot of fantasy football, but centering that around like fantasy football development and occasionally actual data science, actual TM. Um, okay, FP, ECR, archive. Um, season. There's tidyverse, of course. Range. So I've got data from 2016 to 2019, after which I have data for 2020, I think. Okay. So, let's see here. Let's run that again. So I'm going to select filter season. Actually, I don't want to filter season. I want to filter ECR type equals. Yeah, that is Apache Arrow for R. I store all of my internally scraped data in kind of like a file system data sets, and it is a lot faster. So I kind of just stored a bunch of data in here. But yeah, the range function exists. I think it's great, and it really works well if you have any kind of cross-platform. I could store RDS as well, but I think one of the benefits of Open Dataset is that it will Hive style split your data if you're doing like keys. So data. So like we're looking at Fantasy Pros ECR. So I've got different types of ECR, and then each one has scraped dates based on the date that I've been scraping it, and then that stores a file. So it creates a lot of mini files, and it works really well. It's faster and really small data types, so I can actually store most of this on GitHub if I wanted to, while staying under the 50 megabyte limit. So I like that a lot. I'm going to look at the redraft overall, and filter. I think that's everything. So we're just gonna do some selects. Player, Fantasy Pros, ID equals ID. Pause team ECR as the best, worst. Season. Collect. Uh-oh. What am I looking at here? ECR type I need to bring in as well. The only problem with it is that it does have a tendency to hang sometimes, which is a little bit annoying. I can't tell if it's my fault or if it's something programming wrong. But we will give that a spin. Just make sure that I'm thinking of the right thing. We only have weekly data. That would explain why. Crap. I don't want weekly data. So I guess that means I'm going to need to scrape it myself. which I made a bit of a package for, but I don't really remember. And actually, we're just going to do that in the main ffsimulator page. We'll start a new thing. Library scraper, library tidyverse, library scraper, FP rankings. Scrape something here. Consensus cheat sheets for PPR because we prefer PPR. So year equals 2016, I think. Yep, that looks about right. Okay, so instead of doing it this way, we're gonna map. No, we are going to do Tibble season equals 2016 to 2020. Yeah, and we're going to then pipe it, mutate, rankings, redraft. Rankings is going to be equal to map season with FP rankings, PPR cheat sheets, year equals .x. Do it. Okay, so we should now have all of the redraft rankings for 2016 onward, which is good. And I can then, I think the team IDs are wrong. These guys certainly weren't free agents when they were here. So I'm going to just select I'm just going to select, let's see, season, player ID, player name, sports, data ID, rank ECR, rank min, max, rank average, rank STD. Love to see past package in action. Yeah, I mean, I wrote this like as my very first project on Twitch streams, and I think it's been a lot more useful, although I've kind of neglected it since I stopped doing stuff on stream. I've kind of discovered that like I do a lot of work on stream and kind of like decent work and all that, but I kind of start neglecting projects a little bit after I stop streaming them. So I try to get as much done as I can while doing this. Okay, so I've got redraft rankings. I think that's decently clean. Got the max min. The rank ECR is just like a ordered rank, but I prefer usually this average rank. I think that makes sense. Okay, so alright, so I'm gonna save this. We'll save it as CSV. It's only 2,300 rows. Data redraft rankings. Data raw / redraft. FP redraft 2016 to 2020. .csv. We'll put that there. We'll save this in data raw. It might be useful eventually, but it probably won't be. Data redraft data.r. Okay, so with that in hand, we can kind of look at reconstructing as much as possible. Actually, what did Joe say? Okay, out good of putting no character between those years. Whatever. Okay. And so we're gonna look at Joe's suggestion of just mapping those redraft rankings. So we can go arrow, read. Actually, it's not arrow, is it? It's CSV. So read.csv data-raw slash redraft. Nope, not the CSV. Chaotic Evil's putting no dates on it at all. Of course it is. Oh dear. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna kind of rerun a lot of this, but actually what did... You said that we should look at the scoring history, but instead we wanted to group by... What do I want here? PPG data. Okay, so what you think we should have done was get the distribution of scores based on their redraft, like their redraft ranking. So redraft rankings. Gosh, dyslexic typing. Group by rank. No, we're gonna group by. Dang it! I dropped the position. Back to the rel here. Okay, we did that. Redraft rankings. Now I want player position ID. Anything else I want to rename while I'm here? So that should do it. Okay. So now that I have their position, I want to group by position, and then rank them. So that's gonna be okay. Summarize. No. Mutate. Rank. Actually, it's pause rank. It's gonna be equal to rank. Rank. Average. Ties method's gonna be equal to random. Go. And then from here, we're going to ungroup and then left join PPG data. Do I need to bring other things in here? Pulse rank, no. Redraft rankings. So this redraft rankings has a player ID. It is a Fantasy Pros player ID, so I'll need to bring in the correct mapping here. So we'll do DP player IDs. It'll select BSIS ID and Fantasy Pros ID. By equals C player ID. Hey Coda Cow, how you doing? Hope Afton stream went well and hasn't gone down, which is good. Thanks for dropping by and lurking. Appreciate it. I do that all the time with our streamers as well. Just kind of like working in a lab again, or kind of working in an office with other people around. So totally cool. Redraft ranks, player ID, integer. X is integer, Y is a character. So we want mutate at Fantasy Pros ID as integer. We'll just take the path of least resistance here. Eat Game Love, welcome to the stream. Okay, Fantasy Pros ID not found. That's what I wanted. Okay. So now I have I have the sports data ID and the GSIS ID. So hopefully we can join PPG data onto this. So left join PPG data. We're going to select the season, GSIS ID, and PPG? No, wait, I don't want PPG here. I just want their scoring history. Scoring history. So I want their scoring history, I want their GSIS ID onto GSIS ID, and I want to bring in the week, the season, the week, and the points. And left join by equals C, season, and GSIS ID. Cross your fingers. Join column not present in data. May have done this wrongly by reassigning into here. Let's call it preseason ADP outcomes. Okay, so this is the preseason ADP outcomes. You've got Antonio Brown had these outcomes for that ADP. You've got Julio Jones, etc. So what I'm curious to know is how many are missing. So to do that, I think I need the GS. I want to see. Let's see. We can use Skimar to look at that. Because I want to know just how well that join worked. So we can kind of look at this missingness. With missingness things. So we've got complete rate, player IDs fully complete. That's good. Oh no, that's not the right player ID. We've got 98% complete rate on the GSIS ID, which is good. I want to know what's missing here, just because if any of the major players are missing, I want to try to either manually map them or like not map them at all. But I want to make that conscious decision. But it looks like we have a pretty good sampling of like mapping them, because we've got 98% mapping, and so only 96% of the weeks and points are missing, which is okay. Okay, so we're gonna take this preseason ADP outcome. Preseason ADP outcomes filter is an a GSIS ID, and view it. Just to kind of manually look at these. We got a couple of good players here. they do all have sports data IDs, actually, interestingly. So I could try joining sports data ID to... Let me think about that. Actually, and there's a lot of DSTs, which I don't care about. And I also don't really care about the kickers. So, I can filter these redraft rankings to get rid of the kickers. Filter pause not equal to, or pause in CK DST pipe, and then we'll use a casual apostrophe or exclamation mark to remove them. That reduces our numbers here to 202. The highest ranked of which is 30, and I'm not that worried about the ones below here. So let's see. So we're missing these people. What do I want to do with them? I'm sure they're in here. I'm wondering if there's GSIS ID in the scoring history. Doug Martin, the infamous muscle hamster himself. Okay, there is a Sport Radar ID, so I can join. I can join this on somehow. Let me think about how to do that. Maybe I can just join on Sport Radar ID to begin with. Left join, scoring history. So we'll just copy this chunk. But instead of joining GSIS ID, we'll join Sport Radar ID, and we'll take Sports Data ID equals Sport Radar ID, and we can inspect the missingness of this again. No sports data is missing. So let's run skimr again and see if that has solved our problem altogether. Okay, so 99% complete rate. And 100% on the sports data IDs. So, all in all, still missing 200. But maybe they're not as good. So maybe those players aren't very good, so it's okay that they're missing. Let's do isn't a week here and look at them. And okay, so we've got Arian Foster, who has a sports data ID. Did he not play? Arian Foster. Thank you for the follow, Tiny Hamster Big Legs. Nick Grandfaller, Intermediate Python Compares. Welcome to the stream, Paul Beck. Yeah, I like R. I won't draw myself into another one. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's... Oh, there's a few games in here. As much as I will be the first to jump on the R train and sometimes pick fights about R Python, I try to avoid it. You know, it's really like the reason why R is so good for me is because I can do a lot with it, and I like sharing that. And so, you know, the aesthetic of the code itself and like the programming language itself, I'm not as fussed about, really. But I think there's a huge R data community in and around NFL FastR. You like how you were able to review data in RStudio? Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't know if you can. I've actually never tried. But if you can, that would be a major sticking point. I like the way I can like see these objects, see what's in them, here as well as in the actual pane, and kind of flip through it directly. Tim, welcome back. How you doing? Um, yeah, the NFL Fast Start, like the NFL data community is very R, and it's the reason I took up R, along with Joe communitying that. So I am very much a huge fan of the NFL R community as well as just the general R community. It's super great. I haven't heard of a comparable Python community, not that I'm really looking for one, but I do really enjoy it. So it is a really good way to thing. Okay, so I've got preseason ADP outcomes. I've got a few. I wonder if I can do like a second join here. Scoring history has Sport Radar ID, but it didn't line up with. Let me think about how to do this. So outcomes joined by GSIS. Some of them have GSIS, but not Sport Radar. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna put this back in here. And then there's a couple of these. There's definitely some kind of fill of, like, I don't remember Arian Foster being a problem here. Is Arian Foster a problem here? Arian Foster. Ah, he was a problem in GSIS as well, but his rank was very low. But wait, was his rank also low here and I'm completely missing it? Okay, so I don't think, so I'm just gonna go ahead with the Sport Radar one because I don't think there's much benefit to joining these, so we're gonna go with that. And then, so now what I want to do is group by that preseason ECR for that position. Did I do pause rank already? I did pause rank. I have a pause rank for the rank, so now I want to group by season, pause rank. Actually, I don't want to look at even the season here. I want to group all the seasons together, and do mutate apply data similar. How did you get the search function in your data frame? Here? I don't know, how did I do that? I just do it, I think. Oh, filter. There's a filter button right here. I've done it so many times I already forgot how to do it. So you press filter here, you get little search panes, and then you can type in each of them. Yeah. So yeah, that's there. What is this? FF scrapers. Okay, I'll leave that first alone. So we're gonna summarize. All outcomes is going to be equal to list of points. Group. And to kind of look at this, we can kind of compare. How do I want to do this? I had a plot yesterday, so maybe I'll do the same thing today. But your preseason ADP outcomes for quarterback 1. I should get a number of an n as well. So let's do n equals n. Congrats on the NFLverse reband. You know, I I did that a while ago, and I really like it. It is I like architected it, but it actually didn't move FF Scraper into it because I'm not sure it fits next to that. It's kind of a little bit like adjunct. But I got really annoyed when I was looking for like either roster data or actual data or something, and I kept typing the wrong person's GitHub username, and like I couldn't remember whether like Seb had did a thing or Ben had did a thing or Lee did the thing. So I'm like, listen, I'll make NFLverse, I'll make all of you owners. I don't want to be responsible for your code, but it's just gonna live here. And so anytime you want to look for something, it's NFLverse / whatever. And now it all lives together, so you can like find all of the like official production products over there. I've been helping out with like GitHub Actions and our universe, and you can install packages and stuff all there now. So I'm kind of like back end facilitating stuff a bit, but I don't know that I'm going to take over any of those projects or put FF Scraper into it. I think there's going to be enough scope between ffsimulator and FF Scraper and expected points and some other projects that I'm going to have like a branch universe, like a sibling universe of fantasy football packages, tentatively titled FF-verse. That's going to go next to it, NFL-verse, and kind of be like a sibling. But I don't know if I'm going to put it in right away. Yeah, you can search over the thing, so I think it's so much better. Okay, so there's definitely there's definitely a good number of samples here. So like the preseason ADP 1 running back had an N of somewhere between 50 and 75 weeks, which I think is okay. Actually, you know, one of the things I didn't do here is filter scoring history for regular season games. I'm including playoff games right now. I'm not sure if that should or shouldn't have an impact. Unsure. Anyway, so there's definitely a decent sized pool here. Some of them have NAs, which is interesting. Thank you for the follow, Carisi. Jesse, welcome. Afton, hello. How did your stream end up? I was there for the first hour and a bit, but I had to go off and start doing some stuff. So I'm working on ffsimulator, which is a package for simulating fantasy football seasons. And right now I'm kind of looking at some past data that I'm going to help to use feed it. Welcome, welcome. This is the most popular my stream has been in ages. Whoa. Thank you for the follows, everybody. Welcome. I'm working on a fantasy football package to do some simulations. So basically connect to fantasy leagues, get direct scoring from everybody from leagues, and then kind of use historical data and current rankings to project the upcoming season. So I'm a little bit of the ways in here, and I'm kind of doing some work on studying, like generating a population of outcomes to pull from. So I'm going to try to run some comparisons here between the work I did yesterday and the work I'm starting today. So yeah. Alright, so let's look at running backs. So preseason ADP outcomes. ADP outcomes RB. It's going to be preseason. Filter. Pause equals RB. Pause rank greater than equal to 12. No, less than or equal to 12. Less than or equal to 12. And we'll do the same thing with pause rank, which I think is the thing I did yesterday, where if you translate them directly, this is what they would do. Let's see. So we've got PPG outcomes RB, which is going to be pause rank. List cannot be converted, coerced to type double. Rank. Should name these outcomes RB ADP. I'm really glad to see how like the Twitch stream is like really taken off over the past few months. Like it's just Afton and then me, and then like I started like noticing everybody kind of popping up and doing R, which is actually super useful and super helpful to kind of see that community grow. Like I know the R community tends to be super strong, so you know, on Twitter and elsewhere, especially in like the R4DS Slack is super awesome. So huge fan of Jesse's work in both of those streams, and looking forward to seeing Twitch kind of start take off as well, because you know it's nice to casually like watch them do the work, watch people do work and kind of think through things on stream. And of course, you gotta thank Nick Wan as well for all of his data science Twitch standing. Also, definitely huge factor. What am I looking at here? We need one season. Okay, so I've kind of got the outcomes from the old system. That's this data frame here, and I want to compare it to the distributions. I want to compare it to the new system that I kind of just sketched out with ADP. So to do that, I'm going to do outcomes RB. It's going to be equal to outcomes RB ADP. I'm going to left. We're going to rename all points, I think, all outcomes. ADP outcomes. Yeah, it's definitely a lot smaller. I can look at how to bulk that up in a sec, but I'm just curious about the distribution of the overall distributions for now. Actually, I can mutate that really quick. N equals length map. All outcomes, all points. Length. So for the PPG ones, you're looking at like 200s, while this one you're looking at like 80 to 90. So there's definitely something going on here. I can probably bulk up this one by saying that the outcomes for the quarterback 1 could be somewhere between, like, could be this group as well as like quarterback 2, like just kind of broaden the bins a bit. Missing weeks need to be zeros. In ADP outcomes, is that valid? Is that a valid thing to do? NAs, yeah, that would need to be right. That will skew a lot to the right. Okay, let's see. So to do that, we figure out 16 games. Filter. So we're gonna filter week greater than, less than, or equal to 17. So we're only gonna look at regular season weeks, and we'll calculate the N total here. Preseason ADP outcomes there. So that's shrinking a little bit, and then to put zeros in, we know that it's 5 seasons times 17, so 85 total n. So we can do so missing is going to be equal to 5 times 17 minus n, right? And that's going to give us a number of missing games at each one of these, and we can fill them with zeros. Is that zeros or NAs, joke? I think NAs might be better. Like that means they were injured or just missed the game. Like we know when they performed at 0, but we might be able to use this as a proxy for injuries if we use NA. Slice is absolutely amazing, and I'm looking forward to this week's group. I think Tony's in it. I don't know if Tony's still kicking around here, but that's going to be awesome. I think NAs might be better, actually. So I'm going to add a sampling. I'm going to add NAs to that. Team Julia Soji. Yes, but that's like rooting for the favorite. I know you're like, I know they are studio affiliation. I know Julia is like super great, but I've got to root for Tony because it's like rooting for your favorite underdog. So that might be where I'm going with that. I think I'm gonna go NAs, and then if you pull NA out of the hat, yes, Tony, I don't. Your cursive, you've got the cursive IDE ready. So I'm excited about that. Okay, so and then I'm gonna mutate a list. We're gonna repeat of length missing. Map rep length. We're gonna map the missing rep length of x is gonna be equal to NA DBL NA real. Y is going to be equal to dot x, and then I can map. Hang on, we'll make sure that did what I wanted first, and then we'll keep going. So missing NA is y is equal to dot x. It's not y, it's length out. Okay, so you've got preseason ADP outcomes. You got a list of NAs, and basically want to take these two character lists and whap them together. So we can try all outcomes equals list. No, it's going to be map to all outcomes missing NA. We're gonna see these together. You guys are having fun in chat. That's awesome. Tony versus gonna thing. Yeah. Yes, Tony. You're gonna have a Garrick Attenborough theme of horrifically italic IDE, which is gonna be awesome. It's going to be equal to map new all outcomes length. Okay, let's hope that all worked. Let's see. Alright, so we've now got 85 full ones. We're filling these in with NAs where they just basically didn't show up. And from here, I'm going to like sample with replacement 1,000 times. So if you get an A, you get an A. It just kind of happens. And that just basically means you missed. They missed that game. I think they... I'm not sure if NA works at the lower levels. Think about what that means. So that just means they didn't play, right? Not that they played. So like, I have I have a whole bunch of weeks where people played, and then NA is when they didn't register a snap. I guess that's pretty equivalent. Like, your lower ranked players are also not gonna play very much. So okay, I think I'm okay with these. Like your RB 101. Yeah, I think that's okay. Okay. So, holy, what is going on in chat? Varsity jackets, yes. Yes, absolutely. Hex favorite art jacket. Oh, somebody's gonna make that happen, aren't they? I will be the first to tell you to shut up and take my money. That's gonna be awesome. Okay, so we've got a new all outcomes, new N85, so that could include some kind of injury thing. So let's look at Plotsies. So ggplot aesthetic x is going to be equal to actually we're going to mutate the pause rank. So mutate pause rank equals as factor pause rank, and then x is going to be equal to what's in here. Preseason ADP outcomes is a list. New all outcomes. So we're going to unnest. New all outcomes. I normally like a ridge plot for this, so geom density ridges. We're gonna throw it here. Library, GG ridges, library, harbor themes. Geom density ridges with, I think that should just work actually. And since so many people are here, theme, modern RC. I'll actually try to format my plot a little. Okay, so this is the new distribution of outcomes. Your running back 1 is still mostly centered around 25? How? Stat equals inline. What do I want here? So I see that the NA rows I so painstakingly added just got dumped. So I want to try to replace them. So mutate new all outcomes is going to be equal to replace NA new all outcomes 0. Wait. So if that's any indication, we're missing a lot. Like, the expectation that anyone's going to play is kind of high. Is definitely over exaggerating them. But when they do play, I feel like this is a pretty good approximation. Let me figure out how to scale this in a way that makes sense. So when they do play, this is roughly what you expect from a running back. Like the number one running back rated going into the season will kind of score something along the lines of nearly 30 points. And then it kind of like the mean kind of goes that way. Get rid of the bin line because that doesn't help, and we can actually do, I think there's a quantiles. Quantile equals true. Quintile, something like that. Hang on, what is that argument called? Research Scott Fishbowl. Or I did that last time. Quantile underscore lines. Okay. Quantile underscore lines. Okay, so definitely not the smoothest pattern. Like the idea that your fourth running back outperforms your top 3 and 2 is a little weird. And it's kind of interesting to see these tails. So like running back 9 happens to be here. So maybe smoothing it by like making broader bins. So not just looking at RB1, but RB2 and RB3 could be interesting here. Just to like help smooth this out. So like the projection for the first running back is a combination of like the top 3 running back positions. The 2 would be like the next 3, etc. Just kind of smoothing it out a little bit that way, I think would make sense. And also helps broaden the overall size of the data that I can pull from in terms of potential outcomes in like a Monte Carlo type simulation. Whew. Yeah, so I think that's something I'm gonna think about. That's a little bit better. If you add back the zeros and look at the outcomes again, there's definitely a lot, like, this is, I think, a problem based on 5 years of sample size. Like, if the top running back last year missed more than half of the season. So, actually, McCaffrey missed, like, 12 games. So that's, like, definitely partially why you see so much 0 here. I'm not sure how I feel about including them as zeros in this analysis, though. Unsure. Okay, so if I lump these together, what would like a binning? What would binning it look like? So, binning it would mean like slider, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so you got this preseason ADP outcomes, and basically what I want to do now is to make the quarterback 1 be a sample of the next 3. Thanks for coming in, Rachel. Appreciate it. And welcome to the stream. Hope you have a great Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Okay, so if I was binning this, I could take the next like the lag of the next. Like ideally, the running back, like the quarterback one, would have quarterback one, like, or let's say the quarterback two would have the outcomes of quarterback one, quarterback two, and quarterback three. I think would be the right way to do this. So that would basically like smooth out some of that problem from before. So then to do that, I want to do like combine with lead blank and lag blank, right? So that's outcomes here. So along with adding the missings, now I'm going to look at wide bins. It's going to be equal to map 2. No, it's going to be pmap list new all outcomes lead new all outcomes lag new all outcomes. Basically, I'm just gonna combine all those together. Map wide bins length okay, so that kind of triples the size of your bins, so then I can rerun the plot I was looking at earlier, which is here, and instead of using new all outcomes, I can do wide bins. A little smoother, for sure. And definitely kind of indicates that the main part of this is going to be... Actually, I don't see the last quintile. Definitely smooths out this middle range a lot, though, which is nice. And then if I was pulling from these at random, I could pull zeros or NAs, which I think are about the same at the end of the day. So I think Joe's right. I'll go with zeros instead of NAs. And then do a case when map if pause rank equals 1 bins pause rank equals 1. If pause rank is equal to 1, I'm going to combine trying to figure out how to fix 1. So basically what I'm looking at right now is seeing that the first one doesn't have a lag to add to this. So basically what I think I'm going to do is just double count the number 1 so that everybody has 255 outcomes to pull from. So to do that, I'm going to do map if new all outcomes key is going to be equal to, so do it only where pause rank equals 1, and then if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do c.x.x If that's the case, do c.x.x and then continue on with this. I think that should do it. Map if 2 new functions learned today. Yeah, map if. Basically, map if takes this vector. This is a logical vector, right? So if that vector is true, do the map. Otherwise, don't do the map. I guess we could do case when with a map inside of it, but this is pretty similar. So if that happened correctly, that didn't do anything. Why didn't it run? Hello. Preseason ADP outcomes. Wide N. Yeah, that didn't seem to do it, did it? Oh, because I'm overwriting it. So I'm taking map if it is in per, here are, whichever one happens to take your fancy. And I think I'm not doing this correctly. So I'm gonna make it less complicated by doing extra outcomes, and that's gonna be case when pause rank equals 1, new all outcomes. Otherwise, true is going to be equal to, call it a numeric. Get rid of this map if, and then instead of just doing that, we're going to do extra outcomes. And what that's going to do is it's going to create an extra outcomes column for the first one, hopefully. Hopefully. Didn't quite work though, did it? What are we looking at here? Alright, we're gonna go with if else. We'll turn off the strict type checking. If else pause rank equals 1, do new outcomes, otherwise do numeric. And then this is going back to the original one. And preseason ADP outcomes. Perfect. Okay, so we're slightly off because we've added an extra NA for basically no reason. I have a feeling it's... Whoa, what happened here? I don't know why, but I seem to have added a little extra. And it's because of this lead lag. So if I can fix the lead lag, I can do that by group by pause. And then ungroup. Back here. Where was that? Okay, so we've got 255 here. This doesn't have much, but we're actually looking at quarterback 60, so that's not a huge deal. Okay, so now I've got like roughly the same sample size. It should have a bunch more zeros in it, which is mostly okay. And we're gonna rerun this plot. So that feels a little smoother. Quarterback 3 somehow still kind of showing a little like if this is the median, you're kind of seeing that median kind of go higher and then lower again, which is a little unfortunate because um, it's a little unfortunate because this it doesn't really make sense to me that it would do that because your running back 1 missed a bunch of games doesn't mean that they're more likely to do it because they're RB1. It's kind of like it's basically saying like your favorite. It's like a winner's curse or a favorite's curse, I guess. But I'm also like perpetuating it because I'm like doubling the effect of that RB1 missing games, and that's basically like triple counting Christian McCaffrey's like missing the season last year. Oh, but like Saquon Barkley missed the season before that, right? Or was that also last year? I'm confused. I'm hurt and confused, and I don't understand this. But on average, your running back 1 median scores look pretty the same. And then like obviously there's this quintile of not like just doing zeros. But I think that is an outcome for every running back anyway, right? So if we're looking at more than that, we can look at like 24. Yeah, Harbor Themes. Favorite GG plot theme of all time. Fully recommend. We can kind of see, and I think I'm going to switch to bin lines for this because stat equals bin line. You can still kind of see the mean kind of go in that direction across your top 24 running back, which kind of makes sense. Like this, even this is your number 1 rated running back. You're still looking at it go that away. And it will still pull a bunch of zeros as missed games or something, which makes sense. Okay, so I think that's a pretty reasonable projection. And then if I was pulling sampling with replacement from this pool, I think this would look a little bit even more exaggerated, perhaps. Mutate. Let's say we picked, I don't know, 50 games, 50 weeks from this wide bins pool. We can do that by sample 10 sample weeks. It's going to be map wide bins. I'll have to go back and rename this when I actually put it into a function, because I wouldn't understand why I did it this way. But map wide bins sample. I'm going to write it as a lambda so I can use the autocomplete. X is going to be .x. Y's or size is going to be, let's pick, how many things here? Let's pick 1,000 with replacement, and then we'll kind of do the same plot. But in this case, we'll look at the sample weeks. Actually, I think I don't need that, so let's go sample weeks again. Okay, so it looks pretty similar. Look at this in ridges. I'm almost tempted to even brought it from like 3, like from like quarterback above, running back below. I'm almost tempted to like make that an even broader pool of players to pick from rather than just like strokes of like 3 overlapping ranks. But I don't know that that's going to help the overall projection very much. And it's kind of just that simulation where you're just going to pick, however many samples and calculate whether they performed that or did zeros. I think that's okay. And then basically to turn this into a season simulation, I could pick out just like 17 rather than pulling out 1,000. So let's say we picked 17. Would look like that. So basically, kind of include some of that random variation of what could happen. So there's definitely like a bunch of players who will turn out to be zeros, and a bunch of players who will mostly have good production, which I think actually is a pretty good way to simulate the fantasy season in general, where you don't really know. So this kind of tackles both the injury problem and the connecting ADP to actual production problem, kind of in one broad stroke, which is really nice actually. So those are problems that I was worried about before, and I think that does solve it decently. And then obviously it'll converge towards that pattern. So let's look at a different position, because we look at running backs and they tend to be a little bit more volatile injury wise, but we shouldn't see as much of that kind of problem with receivers. So I think that's true. We're kind of seeing the sampling of receivers be a little bit better here. We'll switch to bin lines because I generally prefer that. It's a couple zeros, but it kind of comes with everybody's performance. And then there's some low performance and some high performance. Okay, not bad. This receiver 3 is gone off. Look at that. That's crazy. Okay. So, what else do I want to tackle? So that improves the overall sampling. Okay. Alrighty, so I think the other thing I want to look at is... What is the other thing I want to look at? Any questions from the chat? I can explain what I'm doing rather than just flurry of coding. But think about other research questions I want to tackle in this. Yeah, sometimes I can approach things and like explain what I'm thinking, and other times my brain operates, and then the coding happens, and then my mouth kind of like it's like when you're like listening to a song, like you're just trying to sing along, except you only know like a few of the words, so your brain like it doesn't get all the way to my mouth. So I may have kind of flurry of coding things. What is my favorite GG plot of all time? Like favorite single plot? I don't know if I have a favorite single plot. Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite single plot. I'm like mentally browsing through like all of the past histories of plots, and it's like I don't really have one. I really like GG Ridges, and I really like Bob Brutus's Harbor Themes package, which is the one I'm using right now. That's the one that gives you like the start theme. This one. That's this one. So it's really I think it's really nice. I think some of the plots I made last week were nice. Where's the one I made last week? Like, I'll pull up the one I made last week. I made this plot last week, and basically they used PCA to kind of calculate like fancy strategies, and then kind of like plotted like the overall win percentages by cluster. And again, it's a lot of the same thing where you're looking at ridges with bin lines in this case, so kind of like a histogram. And basically, this once I picked out all the different strategies, which we can look at. Once I picked out all the strategies, I kind of plotted them and kind of plotted their success rates, and you kind of it fit with my intuition, but then it also kind of surprised me that like the finalists for this particular contest came from the worst clusters. So despite in-season dominance, when they did make it to the very end, the teams that were like worse, like in general, outperformed the top tier of clusters, which is kind of interesting. An interesting finding. And basically, and I also there's always the scatter, and I really like this plot theme. So harbor themes, always a huge shout out. Of course, then there's like all the general like plots you kind of make. Like, here's a plot of like the principal components, and their feature importance to the overall principal component score. This kind of comes straight out of a Julia tutorial somewhere, I'm sure. And then I did that plot that you saw earlier. Then basically k-means always has this like how many clusters, like where do the clusters fit kind of plot, and I think these are always really cool to look at too. Yeah, I don't know, this is sort of plots I make. Other good plot resources I like are things like our graph gallery. I use so often. Basically just when I want like starter code for a plot, I kind of go here and crib it. So GG Ridges is this ridgeline package that I like a lot. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of really good coders on Twitter who make much prettier plots than me. I just like slapping it into dark mode because there's actually a surprisingly few number of people who do that. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else I want to look at today. So I kind of want to. So I do like the way this kind of outcome approach works, where you take Fantasy Pros outcomes, and then you kind of map over the last however many. Yeah, I mean, I'll totally. The dark mode idea, harbor themes is here. So that's harbor themes. It's really easy. I really like it. So totally worth using. Yeah. So I only have, kind of going back to this for a sec, while I wrap up my thoughts on the research side of things. I'm always happy to answer our stuff, of course, but so kind of extending this. I've only got 5 years of Fantasy Pros data here. I ideally would like to have more, and kind of look at some other sources to get that data. So I know about a fantasy football calculator has some ADP that goes back a little further that I could try. Calculator. And they've got ADP going back a little, like even further. I know they have. I don't use this very often because I use I don't think their Dynasty ADP is very robust, but they do have 2015, 2014, etc. ADP that I could try using. I haven't done so yet, but I probably could tie these together, and from there be able to connect like a broader sample. So one of the problems I've kind of been bemoaning right now is this idea of there being such a huge like zero for this first one. Flip through my plot history and see if I can find like I don't think I don't think Chris McCaffrey missing one whole season should be weighted this heavily. So if I can extend the data set by adding more rankings, I can then look at this over like a 10-year sample rather than over a 5-year sample. So I think that's somewhere I want to extend this, and I think this could be a source of that data. It looks decent up through 2010 even, which is nice. And then I can take this ADP data and do it forward. Either that, or I can go to Fantasy Pros and like Wayback Machine it. I don't know if they have data further back. They might, actually. They don't have data here, but I could like Wayback Machine and like manually put together this consensus cheat sheets. I don't think they've changed their data super much. In a player missing a whole season, is there a value for this that could cause missing time after from the injury? I'm not. So basically, like the whole premise of not this page. This is basically studying, and I didn't label the plot very well, so this is totally my fault. But the premise is, if they're currently ranked at this Fantasy Pros ranking, what is the distribution of all of the weeks that they've produced at the end of the season, or like over the course of their season? So given that they were ranked this, what did they produce? I'm not really looking at like the injury effect after them missing the whole season, but presumably once they've missed the whole season, their ranking would go down, except Christian McCaffrey's actually didn't. He's still #1 ranked right now, so he would still be applied with this. Like, he was RB1 last year, he's RB1 this year despite the injury, so this would still be Christian McCaffrey, but I'm not really tying like the identity of the player to this very much. I just know that in a 5-year sample, if one of the samples is he missed the season, you get this kind of plot, which if Joe was still here, he would be pointing out and complaining that, that is very much an effect, a possible effect of your #1 rated running back is going to get a bunch more volume, so he could be more open or prone to injuries. I don't love that, because I feel like this is unnecessarily skewed. It should be a little bit more, it should look more like this, more like these, rather than just this one. So, from my end, I think that, but yeah, so I'm only looking at, given that they are ranked this, what is the distribution of their performances, which is a slightly different question than what is Christian McCaffrey's outlook for this season, right? Like, if I was doing that, then I would look at like, okay, so what did his past performance do? What does his future performance do? And like, how does that affect players who are like him or missed a certain number of games? You can kind of start considering all those factors into how similar is that person to McCaffrey, and then kind of use that as the projection forward. In this case, I'm really just constraining myself to, okay, they are ranked this, therefore what are they going to produce that. So I do like the improvement. So yesterday I was assuming that if they're ranked this, they're going to finish at that and then have that distribution. So it's a little bit more optimistic. That assumes perfect knowledge, of course. And when the correlation's only 12% or something, 0.12, it's really not a good assumption to make. So kind of being able to do it forward like this should help in terms of a more realistic distribution, including a bunch of zeros, right? Like, the person who finished #1 RB for the season isn't likely to miss games, but the person who's ranked #1 is likely to miss, like, I don't know, if we use this percentile line, miss a quarter of their games, or is like 1/4 of the outcomes is going to be a 0, regardless of how good they are. So I think that's really interesting. Yeah. Anyways, I think that's it. I'm gonna leave off there for the stream. I'm gonna digest what I've kind of worked through here. And definitely ffsimulator is going to be one of my main projects for June, I think. So I'm going to be working on this again next Saturday at 8 p.m. More of a programming bent, so trying to make package structures and add functions and tests and other fun stuff. And then Sundays tend to be a bit more of a research, biz, data science-y kind of practice. So that's the outlook for the next few. I have people, so I should figure out how to raid somebody with them. Let's see. Let's see who's even online. But I will be wrapping up the stream here. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. And I will raid then Twitch username. Sweet. I will try that. Anybody have a preference as to who we raid? Because otherwise I will kind of just go randomly here. Talk to me, Gooseman.
Still working.
Okay, we're gonna go over to Talk to Me, Gooseman. Creasy streaming. Oh, drat! I would totally have done that. But yes, you could check out Jesse after this. I will send you kind of briefly to Talk to Me, Gooseman, and then you guys can jump over for more our content and or Final Fantasy content. It's kind of related. Fantasy football, Final Fantasy. I'm not sure. One or the other. But we'll see you guys next week. And or if I see you guys in chats and Twitters. We'll do raid. Talk to me, Goose. Okay. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of your Sunday.
At around lunchtime, this dips. Tenho coming in with a raid of 14. Hey, how's it going, Tenho? Thank you very much for that raid, and welcome everyone. Welcome to the Goose Nest. How you all doing today? Hopefully you're not stuck in an ad, because that sucks. Hello to you. How was your stream and what were you streaming? Tell me all about it. Go ahead and give the customary shout out. Nice. Hooray! CFB Nate. It was good. Been working on a fantasy football data package. Ooh, nice.